Hello there and welcome to another episode of the Rest is Policing podcast. I'm Martin Buhagiar. I'm joined by Lee Broadbent. Hi Lee, how are you?
Good, thank you, Martin. I hope you are well rested.
Yeah, I think so. Busy week as always, and it seems to be it's that time of year, isn't it, where things just start to get busy. It gets colder, and
Oh God!
the joints start aching a bit more.
Oh, the closing nights. I mean, it gets dark up here now about 4 o'clock. It's
Well, we had
horrible.
snow. It's Wednesday today. We had snow this morning, and and it was dark at like 20 to 4. It's bloody
Yeah,
mad. And that
madness.
was me moaning last week to people saying I don't feel festive enough yet. Now it's dark at 3:30 and it's snowing. So there you go. What can we do? We'll start with I think there's some exciting news, really, isn't it, Lee? That we're almost ready to make an announcement about our plans and where we're going. But I'll hand it over to you because you're the guy who speaks to the lawyers, so I don't want to say anything I shouldn't.
Well, I mean, it's not this aspect of it's not so much to do with the challenge, so to speak. It's the vision beyond the challenge. So the challenge is this. Well, I say it's not hypothetical, but it challenges the theory around of law as to how Article 11 is being interpreted by the government and applied to police officers. And I think for some, it's difficult to get behind an argument, so to speak. You can understand it, you can see what it's trying to do, but people need to visualize the end result from that, and hopefully we're in a position shortly to go full banding, but we want to do a little bit of a drip of excitement and just to try and give people a taster of the vision, a taster of what's to come. As we mentioned in the last podcast, we want to build something that replicates your voice, that gives you the choice, and then enables you to have a future of police representation. And that's where we're at now. So, yeah, we're going to drop a little bit of an announcement shortly, let people have a look, a little bit of play, and hopefully visualize what changing the legislation will look like.
Brilliant. It's very exciting. It's exciting to be involved in something like this, isn't it? And as some eagle-eyed viewers might have noticed, the last podcast was on a YouTube channel called the National Police Association,
The
rather than
National
the Rest is
Police
Policing.
Association.
And that was for two reasons. One, because that's what we'll be launching, and one because I've gone from a laptop to a Chromebook, and I locked myself out of the other YouTube accounts. But I am now in, and I'm transferring it all over. So there you go. But I thought I'd better come clean and admit to that. So National Police Association, it sounds great, and I think it's hopefully as exciting for police officers watching and listening to this as it is for us to be involved in launching something like this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tired because we've been working so hard on it, but also incredibly excited about it. Yeah, the NPA, the National Police Association, is the name that we've arrived upon. I want to make it clear to people that at this moment in time, anybody can set up an association, as we've seen across policing. There are a number of associations, and there's nothing in legislation or law to prevent you from associating with that association. We're making sure that we still abide by the Police Act, in that the motives or the campaign or the intention of the association is to bring police officers together, to provide them with a space and an opportunity to discuss the ideas, to access, hopefully as we go further along, legal protection products, to access welfare, etc., and to get behind our campaign to break the monopoly. Even when that campaign becomes successful, we'll hopefully be in the position to then pivot into a formal recognised association. So membership to it right now would not be in breach of any of the legislation outlined in the Police Act, because we're not looking to control pay, conditions of service or pension. We're simply campaigning to change the legislation to allow officers to join unions, and in doing so we'll be looking to offer, as our membership grows, legal protected products, affiliated products via third party providers, welfare support provision, all the stuff you'd expect from a great member-led organisation.
Brilliant. And what we'll maybe set up and do in the next few weeks is a podcast where we can do a bit of a Q&A as well, so we can ask for some questions, because I think with your expertise, Lee, as well, just explaining the intricacies of how we'll be set up, and maybe answering some of those questions for officers, maybe a Q&A for police officers watching this who maybe have further questions. So feel free to leave a message below this on YouTube or on Spotify. You can message us on Twitter, the Rest is Policing Podcast Twitter page. So, or I should say X. We'll always call it Twitter, won't we? But feel free to start asking us questions, and I'll put them to Lee on our up and coming podcast, which will hopefully help. Brilliant. Well, so people are going to see that coming. Obviously, it's been a busy week generally, hasn't it? Because there's a lot going on, and of course, we've had this Police Federation conference that wasn't as, it didn't seem to have as much build up. There wasn't a lot leading up to it. It just seemed to come along and happen, didn't it? It's sort of, I didn't really know it was happening until it happened. And
don't think anybody did, not even the Home Secretary, who was or policing minister or any shadow minister were conspicuous in their absence. I mean, that's for as long as I can remember. That's probably a new one on me, where an actual minister hasn't turned up to address the conference.
Yeah, and I think one area where we've all been watching, where it's been busy, is on our dear friend PFEW whistleblower. So they've had a busy week, and I think it started, didn't it? Where at the beginning, at the weekend, there was an article about the Police Federation calling for police forces not to use financial settlements and not to see financial settlements as a way of doing business, which to people like us who've left on that basis with the Police Federation seemed quite odd. What was your, obviously the whistleblower attacked them, and I can see why on that basis, but what were your thoughts on that? That seemed interesting.
People in glass houses should not throw stones. I think I retweeted something along the similar lines, in that I'm aware of a number of people that have got employment tribunals lodged against the Federation, ranging from victimisation to misogyny to sex discrimination. So to stand quite, I'd put myself in one of their positions and think how utterly abhorrent and gaslighting it is to hear the leader of an organisation say things like that, knowing full well that the organisation is doing exactly the opposite to what it is trying to preach. You can't fathom the hypocrisy, or even how they've got the gumption to say it. It's just ludicrous.
It was a weird one, because of course you can go on PFW's website, and there's an FOI. There's a lot of FOIs on that website.
Some very busy people.
But one was asking for how many financial settlements there'd been between, I don't know, I can't remember the dates, like 2019 and 2023, 24, whenever. And there was a lot. I mean, I was there between 2019 and 2022, and there were a lot of people leaving on that basis then, particularly in this new world where you then had a new way of working, if you like, where it wasn't, where staff weren't all reporting to the national chair, so the chair's office or the national secretaries. There has been, I can't remember how many it was, but there have been a lot of people leave with financial agreements. It just seemed really, really weird.
Well, I think, like I said, it's trying to reposition itself as a changed organisation, saying that these things that happened in the past are in the past. This is not who we are now. Completely overlooking the fact that, a good 80% of the people that are still there now were there in the past and presided over all of this. But not only that, these things are still going on. As I say, I know of people that have got the employment tribunals out of against the Federation. The Federation are entitled to defend themselves in those employment tribunals. But are we going to see them using non-disclosure agreements as part of settlement packages to stop people from actually speaking about their experience in the Federation? Like I said, it's common knowledge. There was a settlement agreement in my own claim against the Federation, which prevents me from doing or saying certain things, which, it's abhorrent. And to stand there and then say, police chief shouldn't be doing this and it shouldn't be business as usual, it's insulting. It's gravely insulting.
So you had that, and then obviously it was followed up by the beginning of conference, if you like, where they were talking about National Secretary John Partington's idea in terms of psychometric tests and whatever else, and this headline of "Weed out the wimps."
Weed out the wimps.
Which then I noticed on LinkedIn, they said, we've asked for the headline to be changed, and it has been changed. But of course, it was still retweeted, wasn't it, on the Sunday?
Correct.
It's just, again, it's a strange position to put yourself in.
But it's not just the retweeting. The thrust of the argument is suggests that those people that are leaving policing now just simply did not have the moral fibre about them to hack it. I mean, it completely overlooks their lived experience. And I've got to say, I might get animated on this one. It really, really angered me, that article, because, my own lived experience within policing and the built up trauma that I've suffered and the fact that I was looking at leaving the organisation, I had to put myself back to the position that I was in less than 2 years ago, completely broken by my experience within the Federation and thinking, am I the wimp?
Mm.
And that's the thrust of that argument. And it's just, I just find it ludicrous. I mean, how they can portray, I mean, for 1 minute, they're glad taking the subscriptions off these people 1 minute and then happy the next minute to say, as they're exiting the organisation, you lack the moral fibre to hack it in the first place. It's pathetic. And who on earth outside of the Federation has actually been speaking of psychometric testing as a way of enhancing the recruitment? Because I like to think I'm pretty well in touch with policing. I operate across social platforms where I have over 39,000 police officers across them. Not once have I seen a post, a comment, or anything to say psychometric testing will fix that. So where's the mandate for this?
And it doesn't, I know we touched on this in the last podcast as well, it doesn't sit for me very well with the very worthy campaign in terms of, officer suicide, to then start using this language, because, like, if somebody's struggling mentally, and I know this isn't, we've got to be clear on this, the language, the word wimps wasn't used by PFEW, and I know they wouldn't. But this idea that people who aren't cut out for the job are wimps because they've had mental trauma or they've suffered in some way and they need mental support, and that some tests at the beginning would resolve that. It's an odd one. It's a really odd one.
It's really odd. It really is very odd. But for me, I mean, going back to conference for 1 point, we've said that it just sprung up out of anywhere, and that's because essentially the conference has only happened to vote through this bloody subscription increase, because the only place the organisation can legally increase subscriptions is via conference. It's been wanting to do it for a while. It's had this mock conference now, and it's now pushed subscriptions through by £2 a month. But the other aspect of it is it's allowed them to reframe their narrative around what the Copped Enough campaign was originally set out to be. Copped Enough was about pay and about industrial rights. And the strategy was that we were being held back in terms of our pay because the PRRB weren't independent. There was too much control and influence from government, and there was not enough independent oversight. And there was no arbitration or dispute mechanism, and therefore in 2021 PFEW removed themselves from the process, and then they went on the industrial rights campaign, and that's all bled into this Copped Enough. Now all of a sudden they're rowing all the way back on the industrial rights campaign, as we've seen in the blog that I published. Their arguments that they're putting forward as an interested party in the breaking the monopoly judicial review completely roll back. In fact, they sell out the position on industrial rights, police officers being seen as workers and deserving fair treatment. It's just they're in a bizarre position, and it just the viewing numbers alone on the conference, I don't even think I saw it tally over 200. They're talking to themselves.
It seemed to be averaging like 20 to 30 people, didn't it? And I think one thing that was interesting as well is for an organisation, a massive organisation with 150,000 members, and I know in my time there,
which claims to be their voice.
But also, it's that we'd amassed, and there still are, there's very good people working there in terms of engagement who do a fantastic job. But they've got like nearly 40,000, 35,000 followers on their social media channels, but there doesn't appear to be that engagement, which does seem to indicate, as you say, that they are just talking to themselves, and it's nobody's fault in terms of You can't blame certain departments or the staff.
No,
It's more that the people, the national board, the exec, the national council, making these decisions are just coming up with things that are not appealing to police officers.
well, it's not just they're not appealing to police officers; they're simply talking to themselves. And most police officers switched off to the fact that the Federation are capable of doing anything for them anyway. I mean, I would love to fact check. This is one thing I want to do, and I'll be writing to the policing minister to confirm it. I would love to fact check the position that was put out at a conference by the CEO, which suggests that they're meeting with the policing minister on a fortnightly basis. I mean, if that's the case, that's an unprecedented level of contact between the organisation, and it goes against certainly what I've been told and what I've heard rumoured in the distance between the government and PFEW, which doesn't seem to be decreasing. Hence, no minister at conference.
Yeah, I mean, if the policing minister's meeting the police federation twice a fortnight, I mean, surely they need to have other things on their plate, because that would be mad. That would be incredible. Certainly, as you say, in my time, the police we did not have, or in my time it was different. When I was head of comms, we were dealing very much with the chair's office, and it'd be the chair that would go and meet the Home Secretary or the policing minister, and that didn't happen. That did not happen that many times. Probably 3 or 4 times a year, and then at an event, at conference, at Bravery, and whatever else. And as you touched upon, it really interesting. If they're meeting twice fortnightly, or sorry, if they're meeting fortnightly, twice monthly, that they can't get them along to the conference, given that level, that incredible.
And conference used to be a big thing as well. When a keynote announcement was made at conference, it would generally feature on the news. It's not anywhere. No one's listening to them because they're not listening to them anymore.
Do you feel that this? I mean, I get the feeling just from my time there, and you're probably the same, that something's happened, and I think you've touched on it with the subs increase. Obviously, they had Fed Connect, so that Fed Connect was seen as the vehicle to replace conference. I think, certainly when I was leaving, or when I'd gone, that was what I'd heard was the vehicle to replace conference. Conference cost around, in my time, about £1 million per conference. So there's £1 million saved, and the whole Fed Connect thing was to save that money. So to have a Fed Connect, which they did in the summer, and then now have a conference, obviously I don't know how much it cost, and given it seemed to be a smaller scale, it probably wasn't as much as it used to cost when I was there. Because obviously it was seemed to be much larger, and as you say, well attended by the press, by Home Secretary, and whatever else. But do you feel that maybe they've gone, we need a subs increase, so we're going to have a conference?
That's all they've done it for. That's all they've done it for. And they've not even thought of the optics of bringing 400 delegates together in Birmingham for 2 days and having your National Council meeting the day after. So it's a 3-night, probably 4-night stay for the majority of the delegates. All the hotels, meals, drinks, as we've seen Matt Kane's expenses via Whistle, they do enjoy these things. They've not thought about the optics of that. So they've gone ahead and put subscriptions up by £2 a month, generating £3.6 million a year, and they've probably blown £500,000, probably 2/3 of a million on that aspect of it alone.
It's an interesting question, and I know that we've got some journalists who watch these podcasts. I think it's an interesting one to ask. What was the purpose of, because Fed Connect? So conference is there for them to tell police officers, to tell members about their work, and obviously it's the only vehicle to raise subscription, to raise subs. But Fed Connect is where they spoke about their work for the year. They talked about it. So it's really difficult to understand the need for what feels like a hastily arranged conference towards the end of the year, when it's not usually held in Birmingham, without getting, as you say, Home Secretary, Policing Minister. It does feel odd, doesn't it? And I know we've touched on it, but yeah, it's certainly a weird one.
Yeah. And I'm not accepting the prospects of cap in hand, oh, we're so poor either. If the organisation has survived by spending 95 pence of the pound in order to settle the litigation, which means it survived on 5 pence in the pound, why now does it need a £2 increase? Not only that, let's not forget that the organisation has continually and successively for a number of years spent 2/3 of the membership subscriptions on itself, not on member legal services. I know it pitches all this stuff and it over exaggerates its figures, £150 million, £35 million spent, 150 million redelivered. It's bollocks. Because there's no correlation between it. The spending that it spends on legal generally is for its own legal services. It spends, of the 10, 11 probably average £11 million a year on legal. It spends 2/3 of that on member legal services for employment tribunals, discipline, and Crown Court. The only one of those that generally returns any compensation is an employment tribunal if it doesn't settle outside of court, as it was exampled with the Cano. I can't remember the lady's surname, but the one that McCullum referenced, the almost seven-figure sum. And there's very, very few employment tribunals that proceed anyway. You don't get any return off your criminal or your discipline stuff. And the other spend in the legal budget is on like defamation cases or professional indemnity or judicial reviews or what have you. So it's a small thing. So the way that big money, that big hit of that 150 million is generated is through fast track PI claims. You know, an officer's been involved in a car accident and got whiplash, or trips and slips on a way to a job, etc., and has caused injury. That's the route that generates the majority claims. League, they don't have any influence or control over the spend of that because solicitors do it via affiliation to the association. So this correlation of 35 million spent, 150 million round turn is just utter bollocks.
They spoke, didn't they, as well, about how much money they've had to pay out to the data protection, the data breach and the pension challenge and things like that. Almost with I think, like you say, I've always felt that, and again, it's something that Whistle touched upon previously, this sort of idea that, cops bringing that challenge, particularly the data breach one, it was almost like you're attacking the police federation, and whereas actually they're well within their rights to, they've won their case. There was some talking about how much money they've had to pay in that, but it does feel to me sometimes the way they frame their argument that they almost feel. I do feel that some within the organisation feel a little bit like they're the victims. That there are people targeting them for the data breach and the pension, for getting the pensions challenge so wrong.
There was some national board minutes, either minutes or a transcript, which I saw. One of the national board members has said something along the lines of, eventually people will have to stop suing us. I was like, well, stop making mistakes. Don't blame the membership for protecting themselves and advancing their rights because you continually mess up. Yeah, don't get me started.
But it is true, isn't it? Because you've got an organisation there saying, "Well, we're going to we've had an annual conference. We're going to put your subs up by £2. It's going to generate X amount of money for the organisation. But we're a changed organisation. We're going to do things differently. We're now completely different. We've had our independent review, which said certain things. There's no real evidence of that much change yet. But as you said as well, a lot of the people who were there when the data breach happened, when the pensions challenge was happening, they're still there.
You can't even use the analogy of Trigger's broom because Trigger's broom eventually was a new broom. This is just off the chart. The same people are still there working away in the background, saying that they've changed or believing that they're able to change it when the membership know full well that they were a part of this system for a long time. I've been challenged on this before by some committed Fed reps. Just go on the website, look at the national board and look at the national executive. Have a look at how long they've all been Fed reps and in what positions they were. Branch secretaries, branch chair, now national board member, now lead on this. All through the same period. Same people.
Yes, it's going to be an interesting one. And I think, from our point of view, we're at the very beginning of setting up the National Police Association, which is going to be very exciting. You look at the money that the Police Federation gets through, and you think, for a new organisation, when we're looking at what we would need and what we would plan to do, that even the subs increase, the £2-3 million that generates.
It's 3.6 million pound of additional revenue on top of the already 42 million I think they generate.
It's a staggering amount of money for an organisation as well that has been this year teetering on the brink in terms of its its financial existence.
Yeah, well, they've got to fill the coffers up somehow, haven't they? I tell you what, Pete, I know we can't do this. I know you can't stop your subscription kind of thing, but send us £2. If we could generate 3.6 million in the next week, I'd say we'd have an organisation up and running and twice as efficient as the PFEW. When I last transferred the money from the GoFundMe to the crowd justice page. I think you remember I told you, I kept 800, I think it was £836 of that in order to, run the admin kind of thing, what have you. I think I'm on 575. And that's such a sort of time frame. And I'm building websites, we're going out and meeting people, we're going down to London, we're going all this is done on our own time,
It's worth
majority of it
saying.
on a shoestring, and we're making some good bloody progress. If people had thrown us a couple of extra quid, we'd be well away.
It is true, isn't it? We've been doing this podcast now for God, I don't even know how long we've been doing it for, 6 months or since the summer, and we do it voluntary. And obviously, it's going to be this will become the National Police Association podcast. If you, we still call it the Rest is Policing, but it's what we do. I've been setting up the LinkedIn page this week. You've been setting up the website. I've been setting up the about us and the contact us things, and you've been doing the Facebook stuff. We've been working, as you say, we've had meetings in London with the other people that are involved. There's a lot that's gone on, and I think it's important for those police officers, rank and file police officers watching this to know that we're doing this because we're passionate about it and we care. And yeah, absolutely, you've got the crowdfunder, haven't you? I think it's on 20.
Just over 25,000 now.
25. So if every PFEW member donated £2,
we're well away.
We'd be done. We'd have the money for the judicial review. And it's something I think that anyone listening, just to be aware of, because I think that it's a cynical world, isn't it? And a lot of the time people just assume people are doing things for certain reasons. But we're doing this because we want to and because we think we can make a difference.
Correct, because for most of us, we've been a part of the system. We've seen where its weaknesses and failures are, and we've been, to a certain degree, chewed up by it. Not because we're disloyal, but because we just didn't fit the party narrative. And because of that, some of us have been expelled and banned for life. Look at Mark, look at Rick, lifetime bans. I think of how the government, in their grounds of resistance to the JR, have said, the democratic way to do this, to regain thingy, is to join the Federation and take control. How can you do that if you've been banned? What option do you have? It's an absolute farce to think that it's a democracy. It's a dictatorship.
When you see what's happened to Steve Hartshorn, Rick Pryor, Mark Jones, Rich Cook, Gemma Fox, all yourself, it's a bit of a, when the police minister said that in response to the question about the federation, and that police officers should look to change the federation from within. It does seem like an odd thing to say when there's so much evidence to suggest that is very difficult to do, and that it appears, certainly to some, that the police federation doesn't want to change, despite it saying it does want to. And where's the evidence of that? Where is the evidence of this change?
It doesn't want to change. Why on earth would it want to change? At the minute, it has got it absolutely perfect. There is absolutely zero accountability. There is no oversight body. It's fighting tooth and nail in judicial reviews against Richard and Rick to say that, its processes aren't subject to public law. Therefore, it should be able to do what it wants when it wants. It is absolute, as I say, again, I'll stip it, there is zero accountability. And even when you join as a rep, the Appendix 8 agreement that you signed, your allegiance is to the Federation and the interests of the Federation, not the member, not the membership, but what benefits the organisation. And if you don't get on with the people at the top, then you're done. So you can't bring new ideas in based on a member mandate to want to drive change forward. No, because the old status quo want to keep it the same. They want the revenue. 46, well, it'll be what, £45 million a year of your subscriptions every year. For what?
It's interesting as well. From what I didn't see much of the conference because I was busy this week, but from what I saw, it did feel that there seems to be a change of tack within the Fed, where they're saying we want to work with the Home Office, we want to work with the government. We're not going to be so in your face in terms of trying to
banging the table hasn't worked, so we're going to stop doing it. I'm
not sure they've ever banged the table, have they?
Well, the last time they stopped banging the table and tried to work more closely with government was the time during the pension challenge when they completely aligned themselves to the government's discriminatory position fail to challenge them, and then later disclose legally privileged information to betray the membership. So we all know what working with the government's going to look like in terms of this. Their aim is not to further the interests of the members, but to safeguard the monopoly.
And that's the thing, isn't it? If the government is supportive of the Federation, despite all that it's been through in the last decade and further, if you've got the government saying, no, we think that's still the best option, that's a question that
Could be an eye opener for cops. Who
absolutely.
benefits from this?
Yeah.
Who benefits from this relationship? Because it's certainly not you.
Yeah, absolutely, completely. And that's the thing. That to me raises more eyebrows as well in terms of the police minister saying the best option is the Federation. It does feel like there's been a conversation about this, and there's been. I'm not saying there's a deal done, whatever else, but you've got the Federation saying we're not going to be, to use their words, banging the table. You've got the government saying, yeah, we want to work with them, and at a time when the government are saying we want to improve staff associations and staff representation everywhere.
I think I've still not heard the government say we actually want to work with the Federation.
Right.
I mean, there's a mutual understanding that the government will, because it is the only representative body. But I'm not convinced of this 2 meetings a month, and I'm not convinced of this relationship that that the Federation are trying to portray. As to say, they now have the year of government. It's certainly not what I hear from my sources within the government, and therefore I don't believe it. I still think there's a reticence, and the government are playing a long game. Let's not forget, policing's not high on the agenda at the minute. The primary objectives of the Home Office is to get the immigration crisis under control, get the prisons sorted, and things like that. Policing is a little bit further down. I know there's going to be a white paper released shortly. That's been going on in the background. But when it comes to want to try managing the relationship of the associations and police officers trying to get industrial rights, it's probably not even, it's there, but it's not at the top. So I don't believe that the government have given this the attention that it deserves, and probably won't until it's too late and we're in court at a JR.
Yeah. And it's also, as you say, for these fortnightly meetings, when you consider what's going on in the prison service, when you consider what's going on with immigration, when you consider what's going on with protesting, you consider what's going on in Britain at the moment, if the minister has the ability to meet the Federation every fortnight, you're thinking, wow, that's what are they talking about? Because you'd imagine that what they discussed 2 weeks ago is the same, is probably the same talking points 2 weeks later. And would you want the police minister maybe have other priorities at the moment, given what's happening in the country? It's a weird one. It's a weird claim, and obviously you're going to investigate, and we'll see what comes of it.
I can only imagine them sat there flipping through Hansards looking for relevant references to goose clubs and mutiny as defence. But hey,
without daring to bang the table.
Correct.
Put those glasses down quietly. Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe we should rename the Federation the Goose Club. I don't know.
Would work. I'd like to see the logo. Brilliant. Well, look, thank you for your time as always, Lee. I'll just reiterate what we said at the beginning of this to people watching this who are excited by what we're doing with the National Police Association. If you've got questions, you have anything you want to say, do reach out to us on. You can reach out to us directly on our X pages. Our X page, the Rest is Policing, will have a LinkedIn page. We've both got LinkedIn pages you can contact us by, so please do contact us. Ask your questions, and we'll try and do a Q&A pod, so we're answering as many questions as you can ask. But we've also still got some guests lined up, and that we've been sidetracked with as we've been doing this. We've been working very hard setting the MPA up, so it's exciting for us, but it's been time consuming, and as Lee says, these things don't happen overnight. So we will update you every step of the way. But look, Lee, thank you very much for your time and for your hard work. It feels like it's midnight for both of us at the moment, doesn't it? It's been that kind of week.
It does, mate.
And my dog has got up and started walking around, so we'll definitely leave it there. So thanks for joining in, guys. We'll see you next time on the Rest is Policing podcast.
Stay safe, everybody.